Troubleshooting or writing documentation as different user personas can be time-consuming with all those clicks. Have you ever wanted a more efficient way to easily change user personas? Well, you're going to need to check out this episode. I'm Jennifer Lee, Lead Admin Evangelist, and How I Solved It is back. And in this technical content series, we deep dive into a business challenge and show how one awesome admin chose to solve it. Today, I'm joined by awesome admin Karri Webster. Welcome to How I Solved It. Now let's get to know you a bit better before we dive into your use case and solution. Karri, how did you get started with Salesforce?
Okay, I love telling folks my Salesforce story. I actually first discovered Salesforce in 2007, which seems like a lifetime ago. I was working as a sales and marketing coordinator in the Seattle area. And, it's just part of my job. I had many other things I was doing, but that was really my favorite thing I was doing. And during that time, there was no trailhead, nothing like that. And so companies had to really commit. They had to invest into their employees for training. And I just gotten offered that opportunity and even, taking on more responsibilities within our own Salesforce org. And I had a fun other promotion of my own called motherhood. And I knew I was really bummed to turn down that opportunity, but I also knew for our family that I wanted to be at home with our kids up front. So fast forward to these last few years, my husband, he just retired out of the military. And as he was transitioning out of the military, one of the first things I thought of was, okay, let's see what's going on with Salesforce, because that was something I really loved back then. Lo and behold, there's, a ton of resources available, especially, to military connected members and everything. And so I just dove right in right from there.
Excellent. So being a military spouse, how are you involved in the Salesforce military community?
Okay. So to begin with, even, the very first thing is Salesforce Military itself. So if you are a military spouse or a service member and you're not familiar with Salesforce Military, I highly recommend starting there. Again, I just really dove right in. There's a lot of just guidance, trailhead stuff and vouchers and classes and those kinds of things. And that kind of led into Hiring Our Heroes. I was a Hiring Our Heroes fellow, and that just helped me get my foot in the door and see what life was like, with a company and just kind of experiencing that. And as I gained experience, even in the middle of that, I really connected with Military Trailblazer office hours. They host several different things. The main one I've been participating in is like a Wednesday session, and there's different professionals that come in and kind of share their experience and help trailblazers in that. So since I've really gotten into there, and I'm volunteering as their analytics manager, and I continue attending those sessions and just taking it all in from all the other professionals, but then also offering what I've learned over these last couple of years to other service members and military spouses.
Excellent. So Karri, can you share with us the business challenge that you're trying to solve?
I would be so happy to. I was on a project, and my first task was, my main task in it really was to build out a user guide. And I was also responsible for building out release notes. During this time, it was a lot of documentation, and I just found it a little cumbersome to switch back and forth between personas. So anytime I kind of, find some friction in the org itself, I just kind of jot down a note like, okay, this is really annoying. I could probably fix it. And then I kind of, move on and keep doing my stuff. And this particular project, I more so found it as, my reward for doing as much documentation I did during that day. I would kind of get on. I'm like, okay, how can I troubleshoot this a little bit? And after some time, I developed this screen flow that allows me to switch users. And to backtrack a little bit, this particular project, we were working in Scratch orgs. And Scratch orgs, if you're not familiar with them, they are basically a copy of a Sandbox. And so it has everything in there that your team is using. But the beauty of it is everybody has their own copy. So you could get in there, you can build and break as much stuff as you want to. And then you just send a little tiny piece that you're really happy with back into the sandbox so that can continue moving down the pipeline. So a Scratch org it's a dev edition org. So as many of us know, there are limitations in terms of how many users can be active. Mm-hmm. And there's, the process of activating, deactivating, and so forth. And so, after 100 plus pages of documentation, my solution has proven itself to be very helpful during this time.
I love minimizing clicks. So Carrie, we're admins and we love to nerd out. So let's get technical. Can you show us how you built it?
I would be so happy to. All right, so first I'm going to show you the application itself and what it's doing. So I did spin up an app and it has very limited access right now. So as you can see, my test user only has access to the home tab, to a couple other things on the application. So I'm going to go down here to the utility bar. I'm going to hit update. And for this time, I'm going to test as if I'm the sales user. And I will update from my screen. And I'm just going to do a quick refresh, and that's going to show us what our sales user has. So again, I'm going to have a couple different tabs here available, and you'll see this was purely just to help us quickly see this is for the sales user, what their dashboard might look like, and so forth. Okay, I'm here as my sales user, and now I want to test it as my service user. So I'm going to go back to update. And this time I want to add my service permission set groups and remove my sales permission set groups. I'll hit update. I'm going to minimize my screen here, refresh, and now I'm in here as a service user. You can notice I have different tabs available, and there's different dashboards here too. One thing that's important to note in the solution I'm about to show everyone is this is just working with permission set groups. I would highly recommend and encourage everyone to think outside of what else users are looking at, to include queues, public groups, and so forth. There's a lot that can happen. Okay, so I think we looked here. Now it's for the fun stuff. Let's dive in a little bit. Before we get into the flow, I want to talk about the profile itself. So this type of solution is for orgs that really live and breathe off of permission sets and permission set groups. If you're in an org and there's a ton of different profiles, this is still a solution worth looking into, especially as Salesforce is transitioning more over to permission sets. But just know it won't be quite as useful quite yet, but still it's definitely worth knowing and playing with. So my profile is very basic. It's very stripped down. There's really not a lot in here. So even, I'll get down to tab accessibility and everything is it's pretty blank. So my test user has been assigned to this very basic profile, sales user. And then we're going to get into, this is a very generic permission set group. And the reason that I created this, if you noticed, there's a point in time, if for some reason nothing is selected on that screen flow, I want to make sure that my user still at least has access to the application. They're still a Lightning experience user. They are still able to manage profiles and permission sets and run flows. So some of these may or may not be involved in some of those other permission set groups. Either way, for your test user, you want to make sure that they have these permissions assigned to them. Okay, let's dive in. This is what we're all really here for. As a guardrail, this flow is set up for developer edition orgs and sandboxes. I'm sure many of you can realize and understand why we might not want this set up in a production org. We really don't want our users to be able to change their own permission set group assignments. So in this first element here, we're going to take a look at the organization object, and we want to get two things. We want to get is sandbox, and we want to get the organization type. From there, we're going to make a decision. And in this case, again, we want to see, okay, is this a sandbox? And we also want to see, is it a developer edition org? If it's a sandbox or a developer org, it's going to go down one path. If it is not, especially production work, we really don't want this to be working there. It's going to take us into an error screen. The error screen, I like GIFs, so I added one in there just for fun. Okay, so we are going to go down in this direction. First, we're going to really get a look at all of the permission set groups available to our user, whether these are ones that currently assigned to them or not. We don't necessarily want to get all of the permission set groups, especially if you're in an org that's being shared with a lot of different departments and whatnot, and you only have a handful that you want to test with. This was kind of my way around that. So in this case, the API for my permission set group has HISI for how I solved it. And that's going to help me just get the permission set groups that I'm looking for. From there, I'm going to loop through what I just got, and I'm only going to be getting the IDs. Okay, so now we have a collection with all of our permission set group IDs. Next, we're going to go and see what is currently assigned to our user. And this is actually going to come from a different object, the permission set assignment object. In this case, I'm just going to see if the permission set group ID is in that group that we got earlier. And then I also want to check to see if the assignee ID is equal to the current user's ID. So I'm looping through those. Same thing as before. I'm just collecting the IDs in a text collection variable. And I'm going to be looping through that collection. Okay, so we just talked about the permission set assignment object. And now we're going to take a look at the permission set group object. The reason we want to go back to the permission set group is so that when we are on our screen, we can see the name of our permission set groups that are currently assigned to us. If we were just working from the permission set assignment object, we'd only see numbers. I'll tell you right now, that piece alone took me quite a while to figure out. So I hope this is helpful to you. In this case, we're going to take the ID of our permission set group, and we want to see if it's inside of the text collection of our assigned permission set group IDs. So from there, I did get the developer name, and we're going to use that in our screen. Okay, so those are the ones that are assigned. And then we have our permission set groups that are available to us. Again, we have that original set of permission set group IDs that we worked with. So we want to see, is this permission set group ID in that original collection we got? And then we also want to make sure that that ID is not in the ones that are currently assigned to us. Again, I just got the developer name on these. Now we have all the information that we need for our screen. So our screen here, we're looking at three different things. We have what is currently assigned to us, and this is in a read-only data table. And then let's see. And if you go to the source collection on that, it's that one of the first things. So they get the permission set groups assigned. And then we have another data table. And this is from the get permission set groups available. And then finally, we have the ones that we want to remove. That's from the get permission set groups assigned as well. The difference between this bottom table and the top is just read only. And then the bottom table, users are allowed to select. I did put multiple, depending on your preference, you can do single as well. And another piece to think through on these data tables, if you're not familiar with them, you do want to configure your columns. You need at least one thing in there. So in my case, I used API name so that something would show up that wasn't a number, but it was something that users would be able to understand. Okay, so we have our screen. That's where our users are able to interact with the screen flow. Now we're going to have a couple different loops here. This first loop is taking a look at what our user clicked on to add. So these are the permission set groups that our user wanted to add. And for our collection variable, we're just going to take a look at the perm sets add. So this is how I name things. I put the data table, perm set add, and selected rows. So these are the selected rows, the permission set groups they want to add. And then we're going to add some variables here. So I have a variable for my permission set assignments to add. This is a record variable, and I'm getting the ID at this point. I'm also going to get the assignee ID. I'll scooch over a little bit so you can see what that looks like. And that assignee ID is going to equal the current user's ID. Okay, so we've taken a look at the loops that we want to add, and then we want to make sure that that is assigned to the collection. So this right here is a collection variable, and this over here is just a record variable. So we're adding this record into the collection, and then the loop will continue going through and adding record variables throughout. All right, now that we've figured out what our users want to add, we want to take a look at what they want to remove. So this one is a little more simple. We're going to go through the other data table of the permission set, perm sets that they want to remove. And we're going to loop through those. And this time we only need to get, I'm just collecting IDs this time. And I'll show you why in just a second. So add IDs from the current loop. All right. So now we have a decision to make. We're going to look to see if they need to either only add something, add and remove something, only remove something, or nothing. So in this first case, we're looking to see if they only need to add something. So that's what this 1 and 2 is here. And then if they need to both add and remove something, that's what the second piece is here. And then we'll go into remove. So this is telling us that they only want to remove something. So if they have something in their remove collector, if it's null, it'll go false. So that is basically telling us that they have something there. And then in this case, their add collector is empty. So it is null. Okay, so now we know what direction our users want to go into. So if it goes this way, first we're going to take care of what they want to add. So that's where we're creating a permission set group assignment. And we have their collection variable here, var perm set assignment add collector. So remember earlier in that variable, we collected both the current user's ID and we collected the ID of the permission set group as well. Okay, so we took care of that. And then finally, we're looking to see if they have anything they want to remove. So if yes, that's going to take us this way, very similar. So in this case, we're just looking at the permission set group ID, and we're going to look to see if it's in that remove perm set ID collection. And then if they only wanted to create something, it would finish off here. And then finally, if they wanted to only remove, it's going to come here and it's going to bring us over to the remove. And so once our flow is done, as always, save, test, activate. And once those steps have been completed, if you go into your app manager, you can place it in different places. But for me, I like the app manager. I like the utility bar. And so I came into app manager, utility items. I gave it a label that would be easy for my users to understand. And then you just go into your flow and you find the name of your flow. Okay, let's quickly recap my solution. So I created a screen flow with data tables that renders from the utility bar, and it allows users to do a couple different things. One, they can view their current permission set group assignments in a read-only data table. Two, they can add and remove permission set group assignments in two separate tables, one for adding and two for removing. And once users are finished with their flow and refresh their screen, they're able to test as a different user. And that is how I solved it, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie, for showing us your solution. I loved how you created that screen flow to easily change permissions and test the experience as different users in your Scratch org.
Of course. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This is a lot of fun. And I can't wait to see how other Trailblazers use this.
You just saw how Karri Webster solved the business challenge of efficiently changing user personas while creating user documentation or troubleshooting in a Scratch org or a Sandbox. And she did this using a screen flow accessed from a utility bar that shows her users the current permission set groups and allows them to easily add or remove permission set groups. Love that. You can always find videos like this by going to admin.salesforce.com or by subscribing to our YouTube channel, Salesforce Admin, so you will never miss another episode of How I Solved It. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome admin.